door prize drawing time, so we can get started on one more. Okay.
That is why we're here.
That's right. We all want to win that $100 gift card from Sam's.
That's mine.
There's not really one. I don't tell that name. She's going to go. She's going to say, I brought a cake. She's going to say, I brought the cake. I didn't bring it.
Well, do you mind my favorite one back so you can shake it with? Thank you. I'll tell you, this is a special teapot that Chantel, they made a special Alzheimer's teapot that has the 10 warning signs, and all the donations for this, all their purple line go to Alzheimer's. And so this is the little teapot, so that's what the prize is. So.
Okay. Barbara Bassett. Okay, continuing with the program. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Yvonne Lozano, Assistant Professor at Ashford University, who also happens to be the Alzheimer's Association Board Chair. So let's give her a welcome as she presents dementia challenges, practical applications to difficult behaviors.
Okay, great. Well, anyway, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
I have a little bit of a bad knee, and I have to kind of stand up and get up and down. So I'm just going to make sure. But I have a very strong voice, so I've been told. Also, at times can be very irritating, so I've been told. So, but I want to make sure that I'm not irritating anybody with my voice. So if you can't hear me, just raise your hand. We're just going to kind of relax a little bit, and now you can, kind of take it easy. I want everyone to just take this moment to think of the things that you are experiencing as a caregiver, both as a professional caregiver, if you work in an agency or organization, or as a family caregiver or a caregiver to a friend that you would like to bring up. So let's just please take a moment to raise your hand. Raise your hand at this time and tell me, are you an active caregiver right now for a family member or loved one? Okay. How many of you are professional caregivers at agency, organizations? Okay, professional caregivers. So we're going to, that kind of gives me an idea of what direction I can kind of go with that, because I'm going to just make this up as I go along, if that's okay with y'all. No, I'm really not, but I have this picture up there because I think that in order to, because it's Frankenstein, and I felt like he got a bad deal. If you think about it, nobody really understood him. He was different than everyone else. They feared him. Remember how the town came at the end of the movie and they all tried to kill him? He was so misunderstood. And people's perceptions are their reality. If you really truly believe, as you've heard that saying before, if something is the way that you perceive it, it's really hard for someone else to come along and change the way you believe that to be. Okay? And so I too, myself, am speaking not only as a professional, I've made my whole professional career and directed my career toward the field of gerontology. I have a master's in gerontology, I have a PhD in gerontology, I teach gerontology, and before I did all the teaching in academia, I worked for about 15 years in a geriatric psychiatric facilities, outpatient, inpatient. So I've been working with long-term care facilities, dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, elder patients with depression. My whole career has been dedicated to that. And now that I'm teaching, I'm able to spend more time doing more work. And now my mother was diagnosed in February with a dual diagnosis of vascular and a mixed diagnosis of vascular and Alzheimer's disease. And of course, my grandmother also had vascular dementia too. She lived till she was 95, and she really is the whole reason that I do what I do. I tell people. She told my mother when I was 2 years old that she wanted me to work with old people, and she was going to make sure that that's what I did. And I don't know what she did, but here I am today, just 20 years later, I would say. So I think about the wheel of life. It's when when you start thinking about, we're going to talk about dementia here in just a little bit, but I think it's important to understand aging. Because those are two things we all have in common is we're all getting older and we're all going to die. Every human being, every living thing in the world, that's what happens. Some less than others. We don't know when, we just know that it will happen. So we have two choices. Get busy living or get busy dying. It comes from a Bob Dylan song or Shawshank Redemption, whichever one of those two things you heard and saw. But that's where that saying comes from. You have two choices in life. Get busy living or get busy dying. And the wheel of life is something that I came up with to talk about. The things that as individuals we are connected to. You see this little area here in the center? You see that? You guys see that? That's us, individual. That's ourself. That's who we are. And all of these things that you see out here connect us to the world. Our family, our friends, transportation, health, pets, plants, house, church. Whatever it is, that's how we're connected to our community. But as we get older, some of these things begin to go away. We don't have access to them as easily. And what happens to this part here? It gets bigger. We become so encompassed in ourselves, and it gets bigger that for some people it creates a lot of anxiety. For other people, it's you know, you need to come here now and take care of me. This is your responsibility. Depending on the family we grew up in, depending what our beliefs are, our values, our culture, all of that, you know. And having myself grown up first as a second generation Mexican-American, Catholic, you can better believe that my mother put the little milk in our cereal every morning that had a little dash, a shot of guilt. So we've been drinking milk with a shot of guilt since I can remember. That has been carried on in my family for years and is still there.
It's called culture.
It's called culture, yes. And there's nothing you can do to get away from it. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. It stays there. And so those are kind of some of the battles that we have to start to face within ourselves, within our families, the battles that we face with them. And some of them are challenges, if you will. Some of them are things we're very proud of. But when you start to think about things such as becoming a caregiver, whether professional or personal, it begins to impact our lives in different ways. So now that you see the way the self is and the things that we're connected to, hobbies and jobs and family and church, significant others, our financial means. You know, at some point we were able to work and earn a paycheck or earn money, whatever the situation may have been. Now when all those things start to go away, why do they start to go away? Can anybody think of why they go away?
Children grow up.
Children grow up. What else? What happens to things like transportation? You can't drive anymore, right? What happens to friends and neighbors? They move away, they die, or that you yourself move away from that neighborhood. What happens to your pets? What happens to your access to HEB? Well, no, let's just say this. Let's say if you're a functioning older adult, you can get yourself to HEB. But if you don't have that level of functioning, you're going to have to wait for someone to take you, right? Or to bring you something. But how important is the ability to go to the grocery store to all of us here? Very. You think it's not that. You think, you gripe about it. Oh, I got to go to HEB, and the lines are going to be long, and I'm not going to find what I need, and then I'm going to have to go somewhere else. But then when you can't go any longer. And my grandmother helped remind me of that. One day she said to me, because I used to take her to the grocery store as she got older all the time, and she used to say to me, I never thought I'd get to a point in my life where I had to wait till Saturday to get a loaf of bread. That was very, very important to her, because she was a cook, she loved to cook, and she would go to the store almost every day. Just to get a little something here and there. So now, you see where the self gets bigger, and now kind of that dependency for those people that are, even someone who's beginning stages or moderate stages of dementia. I saw this with my mother when she started to first show signs about 3 to 5 years ago, where she began to isolate herself. And so she became more dependent on who? She didn't have a pet Who was she more dependent on? Family. So in some regards, this might even be there still, but it goes away because people's dependency is going to be on the family. So there it is. So here's the other thing. Think about the number of losses that we experience as we grow older. Now, I'm not doing this to make you depressed. I know you're depressed now. Now we're going to have somebody come in and give you something in your, we'll put something in your lunch. Make you feel better. Or we'll just get a margarita machine and we'll all feel better. Do that. That's what I did before I got in here. No, so you think about that, and you think about as you're aging and you're already experiencing this. This is separate from having dementia or being a caregiver. So now you're dealing with someone, and you may not be able to think about it very much, but now think about what this means to you and what this means to this older adult who has experienced these losses. They go to funeral after funeral after funeral. They hear about friends and loved ones and friends they worked with, friends and neighbors that all have died, friends at church that have died, and maybe not even access to church any longer like they used to have, not being able to get to their church. And for this population, for these older adults, they're still, and people over the age of 75, they're still the strongest participants and members of churches all over the United States. All denominations. You're going to see more seniors in a church than you're going to see any other age group. Well, at least early in the morning. If you're Catholic, they're going to be at the 8 o'clock Mass, maybe the 9 o'clock Mass, and then the 12:15 Mass is going to be all the people under 40. I call that the Dallas Cowboy Mass. It's a Mass right before the Cowboys play, maybe, or right, if it's going to be the 12 o'clock game, then they're going to be at the 11 o'clock Mass. So people work out their Mass schedule around the Cowboys, I think, if you're a Cowboy fan. So now you've had that, now you have someone who's got that, and they're already kind of feeling down maybe, and they're feeling some of those losses, and now their level of dependency has increased, and now on top of that, they have Alzheimer's or dementia disease. Now on top of that. So what are some of the things we're already going to have to deal with? Maybe some depression, maybe some anxiety, maybe some fear, maybe some anger, some frustration, all the signs and symptoms of grief that person is going to have to experience, and that doesn't include what you're experiencing as a caregiver yourself. Because you've had some of those losses have to occur quicker for you, a lot sooner, because of your commitment to the caregiving. So, we start to look at some of the functional loss. You know how you hear people say now, 60s and you 50, and 50s and you 40, you hear those sayings? Well, you know what that means is that functionally, that person, I was just talking to Mark about my knee, and my doctor told me that I played softball for 30 years, I played in college, I played a long time, I hurt my knee really bad. I told him, I said, remember it was back in the day when your mom would say, oh, put some ice on it, and you're like, your knee's over here. And she's like, put some ice on it, and have a Sprite, it'll be better. That was my mother, have a Sprite. I don't know what the Sprite was about, but she'd like, drink a Sprite or 7-Up, that will help my knee. Okay, yeah, I was too young for beer, so she did that, my dad did that when I turned 18, and worked out later. So the thing is now, is that the doctor told me my knee's like that of an 85-year-old. My other right knee's a 75-year-old. So you think about some of those things and what you have to do to try to change that about your life. So now you're experiencing functional losses. So despite the losses I've already mentioned for the Alzheimer patient, that you might have to experience issues with willingness and ability to beg. How many of you have that issue? Anybody? Not you, yourself. But the person you care for. Everybody's like, I'm not going to admit that I never take a bath. Okay, how many of you, the people you care for, that's an issue? Okay, so
you have to encourage them to take a bath.
Yeah, you have to encourage them very strongly. And then grooming, what clothes to wear, dressing them, their mobility, toileting becomes an issue, communication, reading and writing skills. All these things are affected by the disease. Now, this is the one thing I started to notice from my mother. I told my siblings, I said, something is going wrong with her. I said, for one thing, my mom used to have one of those houses you could like eat off the floor. It was always spotless. It would just drive us crazy. She was just a clean freak. And all of a sudden we started to notice things out of place. She lived up by herself. My father died about 12 years ago. So we started to notice some of these things. Well, and also her hygiene. Her makeup wasn't quite right the way she used to wear it. Her dresses were wrinkled where she used to never, she used to never go out without having everything look perfect. And now she was leaving with some things that were out of sorts. So we started to notice that. So I decided I had to talk with her about it. I said, Mom, what's going on with the bathroom? I have a clean house. I don't know what you think. And she got mad at me, of course, Sometimes I think my brother and sister put me up to that just so she'll yell at me and not them. Maybe that was part of it too. Needless to say, about a year ago we moved her out. She wanted to move in with my brother, who I call the Simba of the family. So you can imagine a Hispanic family, the youngest only male in the family. He is the king, the heir to the throne. The light shines on him. The sun sets behind him. The sun rises in front of him. So anything he says and does. So when we had a family meeting and we said, what would you like to do? She goes, I want to move in with your brother and his wife. I'm sure his wife wanted to pass out, but that's what she chose to do, and that's where she's still living now. But they've had some issues with her, and a lot of the things that I'm talking about today. And I've noticed too, when she comes to stay with me, she'll come and stay with me a week, or a few days or a week, because she has to get back to him. I mean, she can't even stay with me 3 days. She already wants to know where he is. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So one of the things that I noticed about her in regards to Alzheimer's with this whole issue of functional decline, one of the things we noticed is that she didn't want to bathe. And so I decided I was going to try to figure this out. All my years of work, all my years of experience, everything, I was going to just throw it at her. None of it worked. None of it.
Not a bit.
Not a bit. I said, all that college I paid for, none of it worked. So I'm going to tell y'all what to do. Maybe it'll work for you. But it doesn't work for my mother. But I tell you, there were some things we had to do behind the scenes that kind of worked too.
Is it because she's educated in that area and perhaps she hides the fact?
She was hiding the fact that she didn't know how to turn the tub on anymore. She couldn't turn on the shower. So she would get in there, and I finally said, you know what, let me turn on the shower for you. She's very private. She didn't want me to get in there when she was bathing. So I turned on the shower, and she got in there, and then almost immediately, I was standing outside the door. I heard the shower go off within 40 seconds. There's no way she's already taken a shower. So I waited for her to come out and get dressed. Her hair wasn't wet. You could tell the towel that she out there wasn't wet. She didn't get in there. She just reached in there and turned off the shower. So I said, how do I ask her without embarrassing her? I said, how do I ask her, did you take a shower? So I said, did you try that new soap I bought, that really nice coconut body wash? I can't use that stuff. I can't use that. And then I thought, okay, I'll get her because there's no other soap in there but that soap. I said, so which soap did you use? I brought my own. What kind is it? I don't have to tell you everything. Well, she didn't have soap. So this went on for 2 or 3 days of me trying to help her to make sure that she got in the shower. So finally I said to her, we're going to go eat and we're going to meet some of her old friends. I had set up a little lunch arrangement for her. And I said, you know how Olga and Nancy dress up really nice when they come. So let's dress you up really nice. Let's, I'll let you borrow some of my earrings. You'll take a shower. I'll fix your hair. Well, then I knew then that she would think about that. So now it worked. So now whenever she comes to my house, I tell her, you know what, I think today maybe we should go find so-and-so or so-and-so and go have lunch with them. So she wants to get dressed up. She wants to look nice and smell nice, so that's how I mean, this is every day though. But it works for her, and for right now, it seems to work for her. But the shower thing was an issue, she didn't know how to turn it on, and she was hiding the fact that she didn't, that was correct, you know, and so you have to kind of play along, figure out something that's going to work. Now, and the other thing is, not only that, but when she got in the shower, she didn't know what to do. Because remember, they start to lose, they're in it. This is how you really know that someone has dementia. This is my little trick. They can't get more than 3 steps done. They can do step 1 and step 2, but they can't get to that 3rd step sometimes. And maybe they can even do 4 or 5, but they can't get to those steps. So that's something else you can start to think of, is to you might have to help them with step 2 and 3, and maybe just kind of nudge them along, or as my friend would say, kind of prompt her. But see, sometimes prompts don't work either. You'll say, oh, the hot water's the one on the left, and the cold water's the one on the right. Well, she doesn't even know what right or left is anymore. So you have to, you know, make sure that happens. And one time she came out, and I heard her kind of yell, but just a little bit. And so I said, Mom, are you okay? She said, oh, the water's really hot. So she had her robe on. I walked in there, and she had turned the cold water off and had gotten in with it really hot. So that was the other thing, a lesson that you kind of learned with that. It's a constant observation, constant work, trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. This is what tires caregivers out. This is what starts to make us tired, both mentally and emotionally, begins to affect us. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, I had that problem with my husband. He started, then he went shower.
Yes.
And he would just stand there and come out dry.
Right.
So I tried, and finally one day I said, you know what? I went in there and showered myself and got the water fixed. And I said, the water's ready for you, come on. And now he takes a shower every day. Because the water's already fixed. And so I go first, so you're next.
Yeah.
So that works for us.
And then something else too, if you have a shower chair where they can sit, you can have it behind the curtain, you can just hand them kind of a soapy towel, you know, and help them, just tell them just to use it. Talk to them, but don't just bark orders. This is what I noticed with myself too. I was like, now do your hair, now scrub your back, now, you know, so my mother doesn't like that. So I have to talk to her about something else, like, how are the kids doing at school? Have you heard from so-and-so, and when she's in there bathing, she's having a good time, and we're talking, and she likes that. And so she's focused. I said, Mom, do you like the soap? Do you like the towel? You know, just, you have to really start to work through them on that. And so that's, for some people, that's what you have to start to think of. And you have to look at these level of functioning. You have to look at the level of function, the things that they're starting to feel and decline, but also realize the fact that they still, even though they may not be able to give you reasons, their level of coping and thinking has declined enough where they're not able to figure these things out on their own, but they're also not feeling good about themselves.
But that given them mother, the soap, and my mother used to tell me, and who is the mother?
Yeah.
And I have to
Back off.
You are mom, you are. And then talk to her in conversation, so forth, which will take her to where I
Right, and what I did with the soap is I would say, this worked for me too, I would say, Mom, I can't open this soap. Can you open it for me? And she'd try it, and I'm like, oh, look, and so I'd show her. And I said, thanks for helping me open that. Well, you don't know how to do nothing, and that's why I'm here. So she, you know,
she's still your mother.
That's right, she's still my mother, and I made her feel as if she had done it herself. That's important to her. I'm still her, in her eyes, I'm still 12. You need to understand that. I don't care if you're 50 or 40 or 30 or 80, and you're, well, maybe an older mother, but no matter how old you are, you're still, in her eyes, you're 12 years old. If you're talking about parents, okay? So what happens is when we begin kind of these physical or these battles with them, and we're trying to we get frustrated, and they feel our frustration, then you're going to start to see some of these behaviors that are already going to be there as part of the diagnosis. They're going to already be there. But we don't want to be the one who helps make these worse for them. So we see the irritability, agitation. How many of this sounds familiar to y'all? the pacing for some, especially in Alzheimer's disease, the reduced tolerance for stress. Now, what does that mean? Well, I noticed this with my mother already. If things are too loud, if the kids are too loud in the background, if the TV's too loud, if the music's too loud, if there's the TV and the music and the stove is going, it's too much stimulation for her. This is a mistake that a lot of nursing homes make, and a lot of assisted living facilities, long-term care facilities, is that there's too much stimulation going on, and you have to reduce some of that stimulation. So if you see that, if I see her start to escalate, or she starts to say, what is that? What's that noise? Because she doesn't recognize a doorbell anymore. So if she hears a doorbell, she's like, who's doing that? What's that noise? Or if she hears the microwave beep, she doesn't understand what that noise is. So she'll say, what is that? And I can hear the irritation in her voice. So try to keep the noise level down, not have especially if you have an event or a party or something at your house, and there's a lot of people coming over, and the TV's on, and the kids are going crazy, and the people are talking loud, that's going to cause some problems. Maybe not, but I mean, I think these are the things, and also they become more resistant to care. Now, part of them why do you think they don't want the care? You would think that most people would want and welcome the care. Why do you think they're not welcoming the care?
Their body has adapted to the change, and they have no idea that they are ill.
They don't know what's going on. They don't understand it. Exactly. They don't understand it. Everything. Exactly what you said. They don't have any idea what's going on. That's why now someone says, well, I just tell them. Do they understand that? Maybe one or two words at the beginning, and then you've lost them. How many times have you, and I guarantee you, and don't lie, I don't want y'all to lie, because we're all together now. But how many times have y'all sat there and listened to somebody talk to you about something serious, and next thing you know, you're going, oh, I need to go get some bread. Saturday I have that appointment. I get my hair cut. And then they go, don't you think that's right? Oh, yes, that's right. That's right, I agree with that. That's what the dementia Alzheimer's patient's brain is like. Now, they're not maybe thinking about other things, but they're gone. They don't hear, all they hear is this gobbledygook of information. And you just said, well, I just sat here and I told her. I just explained everything to her. And she's still not using the right fork. So we think, how could they not understand my beautiful explanation that I just gave? I spent so much time, and I use simple words. So if they don't understand, like it was explained, that why they're getting care, and we're trying to explain it to them, we have to figure out a different way to approach them. And you know what? Every single person is different. Every single person is different, and every day you feel the same exact way. Or some days you're just kind of in a funk, in a bad mood, not feeling good. You don't know why. Maybe down, maybe just a bad day. You know what I'm saying? Or the Monday after the Cowboys lose, which is often. So maybe it's a day like that. Or when the Spurs lost the game in the 6th game in the whatever series, games like that. So you think to yourself, if you're having that bad day, maybe that's not a day that you are going to be at your best caregiving behavior, and you have to give yourself permission to be okay with those days. And maybe those are the days you need to have somebody else come in and help you. I have this great story when I was working with caregivers just like this in a room in Uvalde.
I'm from Uvalde.
Oh yeah, I was working with caregivers in a room in Uvalde, and there was a woman there who was really struggling with caring for her husband. And one of the things that she and her husband had always done before he was diagnosed with dementia is they used to ride their bikes around town a little bit, just a little bit, and they really enjoyed that exercise time together. Well, he couldn't really do that anymore, but she still liked to do it, but he was getting very jealous, which you know is very common for a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia patients. They get very jealous. And so she got to where she couldn't go any longer. And then for some reason, because she was home more, her kids thought it was a great time for her to take care of grandkids. Well, since you're home anyway, Mom, I'm going to drop off the kids to your house. So she started to tell me this story, and I just told her, after the meeting, I said, I have a suggestion for you. I said, the next time that you decide you want to go on a bike ride, I want you to put your husband in the car. I want you to take him to your daughter or son's home. And I want you to drop them off on the porch and say, I figured since y'all were home today, you could take care of that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic thing to do.
And so about 3 weeks later, she sent me a picture on email of herself on the bike. And she said, my husband's been hanging out with his children. And I said, the other thing is you got to start saying no to your kids about taking care of your grandkids. And I know you want to see them, but you don't need to see them while you're caring for your husband. You need to see them at a different time when you can enjoy your grandkids and not be taking care of him as well. That's the whole purpose, is for you to spend time with them. How are you going to spend time with those kids, really quality time, when you're having to care for someone else who needs your attention? So you have to say no. And again, for some of us, especially caregivers, and especially depending on what your values and where your culture is, saying no is not an easy task.
Good for you, doctor.
So you have,
another man will babysit, and I don't recommend anyone babysit. I'm as healthy as anything.
there you go. Also, I know grandmothers who are not caregivers who say no, who say I didn't become a grandmother to babysit, that kind of thing. So you have to establish that at the beginning. And I know that you're trying to help your kids out, and I know that you don't want them to. Some people need to work, but when you become a caregiver, you have to say, I can't do this anymore while I'm caring for your dad or your mom and care for your kids during the day anymore. They're going to have to figure something out. Let me just tell you, here's my theory. If they figured out how to have a kid, they need to figure out how to take care of it.
That's correct. They didn't wake up that morning.
How many of you don't agree with that? That's what I thought. So, some of the things we start to see is that we see increased anxiety, waking up at night, frequent awakening at night, catastrophic behaviors, which is more aggressive behaviors, physical aggressiveness, those kind of things, wandering, confusion, agitation, combative, diminished reserve, meaning that they're not able to sleep for very long periods of time. And the more stress that you see, look at what this says, more likely to occur as stress increases. So what does that tell us as caregivers? Keep the stress down. I've had to figure out, when my mother only stays with me for a few days, I've had to figure out what reduces her stress. Because she will start to get a little irritated. She's sleeping at night, she's not wandering, she's not doing any of that stuff yet, but I can notice her agitation, and she really starts firing out at me. I'm the oldest daughter, and this is what she tells the doctor. The doctor said, why didn't you move in with Yvonne? Oh, we're too close in age. My God, how old were you when you had me? 8? So, I know that my mother she used to love to read, but she loves and has always loved her novellas. So I will turn those novellas on, and my mother, it's like a gorilla with, classical music. She just calms down. She'll tell you after every novella what happened, who did what, who didn't what. She knows the whole story. And if I sit down there with her and I'll say in a commercial, now what's going on? She'll tell me the whole thing. So for her, it makes you see the smile on her face. It makes her happy. I engage. I don't just put her in front of the TV like a kid with Barney, I try to engage her and talk to her. It's not like a babysitting tool, but I know it calms her down. The other thing that calms her down, she doesn't like foot massages. She doesn't like that. She doesn't like hand massages, but she likes to get her hair combed and she likes to get manicured. So if I'll say, let me do your nails, and she'll oh, I just love this, it's so relaxing, and let me do your hair. And then an hour later she said, oh, I thought you were going to do my nails. I'm like, okay. So then I do her nails again, and whatever it takes to kind of keep her calm, especially if I start to see any of these behaviors especially with her, increased anxiety and a lot of confusion and agitation. she used to like to take care of plants, but she doesn't like that anymore, because I'll say, let's go outside and get the water hose, and you can water the plants, and then she complained, she said, I didn't come here to work, and I can't believe you're making me work, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna have her do that anymore. But she does like to fold socks. So I'll bring all these socks from my drawer, and I'll unfold them, and I'll give them to her, and she'll sit there forever trying to figure out what matches with what. And then she enjoys it. She complains a little bit about working, but she enjoys it. So what are some of the sources? This is what I was talking about. You have to figure out what really stresses them out. What is it? Is it noise? Is it hunger? Is it thirst? Is it just needing a little shot of tequila? Maybe that's all. No, I'm just kidding. Don't start giving shots of tequila to the person you're caring for now.
Do their medications cause any of that?
Yeah, well, right here. Taking medications can be sources of stress.
I didn't see that there, I'm sorry.
Taking medications can be sources of stress as well. A lot of different side effects. You might want to ask your doctor. Now, this is something I think it's important as caregivers that you all know. Please, because you're under stress too as a caregiver, don't make big decisions without consulting someone that can help you think this out. It's not a good time to change insurances. It's not a good time to try to change medications. It's not a good time to try to do any of those things. Talk it out with your family. Find someone in the community, AAA, for someone you can talk to, a counselor, someone you can just start to help you look at everything and make those decisions. And when you think that the medications are an issue, visit this with your doctor. And let me just say this before, are there any medical doctors in here yet? Okay, before one walks in the door. Let me just say, I believe that we have physicians and we hire them, right? Because they get paid from our insurance, correct? So in technicality, we're hiring that third person. So if you're not happy with someone you've hired, what do you do? And you do what? But the problem with a lot of older adults is they think their doctors are God with a little g. Okay? And we have to help them make decisions we have to do what's best for them. And we recently did this with my mother. As a matter of fact, she fired her doctor, and I wish she had, because she was a great physician. But I realized it was time. My mother was just getting frustrated. So for the first time, I was able to talk my mother into getting a geriatrician. Now, my mother said to me, I don't want a woman doctor. She's from that generation that women aren't smart. I don't know. She thinks I got my PhD. Someone gave it to me just for fun. But she thinks. And I always tell her, Mom, I'm smart because you are smart. She's like, no, she doesn't believe that about herself. But even though her other doctor was smart, she thought her other female doctor was smart. She didn't want. So I got her a geriatrician. Here's what I had the doctor do. Could you please? I called her office. I said, I want my doctor to see this. I want my mother to see your office. And I asked her office staff, can you send my mother an invitation? Something. They did. We are opening, we have a new office and we'd love to see you. And so she calls me. This is about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I got this really nice invitation from this doctor. And she just opened an office downtown at the Knicks. And I would love to go there. I mean, it looks pretty. The office looks nice. So we did. We made an appointment. She took the invitation with her. She was very proud. And the doctor brought her in. And now she just thinks, Dr. I.C. actually invited me to her office. That's what she thinks. Well, that's important to my mother. Whatever works for her. Besides throwing her in the trunk and tying her up, I'm not sure how else to do it. But I think I would have gotten in trouble for that. So, I'm trying to reduce that source of stress for her. I'm trying to always think ahead of the game. That you know that person you're caring for so well that you know what those are. As a matter of fact, if you're married, you know what stresses you out with your spouse, and your spouse knows what stresses you out, but yet you still do it to each other. That's the fun part about being married. I mean, it wouldn't be any fun unless you could stress each other out. I mean, you know, what fun would it be if y'all really got along all the time? That would be so boring. Who gets along all the time? Nobody. If you do get along, I mean, that's good. God bless you. Me, myself, I like to be in battle sometimes. I like to put on my armor and go to the front line. That's what I enjoy. So, look at these things. Are there too many people, too many things going on? Eating dinner, taking meds, meal. Also, giving them their medications. Oh my gosh, that's like a big deal. My mother's got her medications counted. 5 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. She takes insulin in the morning. I've been taking my insulin for 20 years. You don't know nothing. You can't tell me what to do. She just does not remember that evening dose. She doesn't remember she's supposed to take it before dinner. She cannot. She's lost that in her head. And when it's breakfast, she does it. When it's dinner, it's not. You have to think about that with the person you're caring for. What is that moment, that time? What is it that's irritating them? So now what do? I put on the novella that I've recorded, and I have that on. Mom, it's time to take your insulin. Oh, okay, go ahead. She's distracted. She's not thinking about the fact that it's dinner time. Or I let her come in and I start talking about how good dinner is. Oh, today we're having some chalupas with lettuce and tomato. Oh my gosh, you used to make great chalupas, Mom. Yes, I did. They were better than yours. Yes, they were. You know, that kind of thing. So I let her tell me that. What's wrong with my chalupas? She loves to tell me what's wrong with my chalupas. So, or anything that I cook, actually. Also, the other thing is, what is the physical stress that goes along with that? You know, medication side effects. The other thing is, I noticed with my mother is if you don't tell her to drink water or give her water, she won't drink water all day. She won't make an effort to go and get snacks that she needs to have as a diabetic. I have to do those for her. Or sometimes if I know she's not going to want to take the water because she really prefers to have like Diet Dr. Pepper every single time, I'll get water with a big glass of ice and I'll put it in a cute cup because she likes like little cartoon characters. She likes Speedy Gonzales and Bugs Bunny and those guys. So I'll put it like in a cup like that with ice and I'm like, Mom, look at my new cup. And it really keeps my water cold. Well, what, did you bring me some? Well, here, you can have this one. It's over. Dun, dun. It's over right there. So, what changes have you made? What mood are you in? Because you're just having a bad day. Remember, you're going to have to get some help. Did you get them off the routine? Gosh, do you all know how important the routine is to the person you care for? Is routine not critical? They need that routine. When you change it, right when you get them going, it's difficult. Also, the environment, is it too cold, too hot, too much air blowing on them, the fans overhead, is something like that going on that's causing the problem? Maybe they don't like the TV show or the music that you're playing either. You should know what kind of music they like. This is the thing I always tell nursing homes and Alzheimer's units. They cannot listen to the music you like. And here's the other thing. When I get to be like that and I'm in nursing home or wherever I'm at, I don't want to be listening to the music that my mother listened to. I'll be listening to music from the 60s and 70s. I'll be listening to some hard rock classic. Foreigner, I want Foreigner on the radio. I want Bette Midler on the radio. I want Cher on the radio.
There you go.
Those are the people I'm going to be listening to. I'll tell you how old I am now. That's what's going to happen. That's a group you need to know what does that person like. And TV shows, oh, don't make me watch stuff I don't like. Don't put on certain news stations either. I have some political expectations when I'm older. Don't force me to watch your politics. Sometimes the demands, what you're telling them is too complex. Short and sweet. And sometimes you have to show them. Sometimes they don't understand what you're saying, so you're going to show them. Sometimes with my mother, I'll ask her a question. Mom, is this the shot that you use this for your insulin? Yeah, that's what I use. Well, it may not be, but it better be, because I'm like, I'm glad you're here, Mom, to tell me. Yes, because you don't know how to do nothing. So then, you give it to her, and she thinks she decided. So whatever works for them. Remember, you're trying to integrate yourself into what that you understand them so well. As a caregiver, it's going to reduce your stress too. Now, at the beginning, it can be it's very difficult. And you know what else? If all this worked perfectly, we wouldn't have to have seminars like this. We'd be going, you know what, everything we told them 3 years ago is still working, so we don't have to come back. It doesn't work like that. Unless you have, my mother, then nothing works for her. But, yes, it does. You just have to kind of play that game a little bit and figure it out. Also, be careful with restrictive and your feedback, the way your tone. This, to me, is the hardest. Because I have a very powerful voice, and I have a tendency, when I talk to people, I'm a teacher, so I'm always teaching. And my mother says, I'm not one of your students. No soy pendeja. That's her famous one. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm stressed out already, man. I want that margarita. You said you were going to hit me a beer right there. You're buy me a beer. Okay, so then don't be careful what you say. Don't do that. Your parents are dead, but this is your house. Your parent, you're trying to correct them. No, I gave you that in the morning. I gave you that last night. I told you already. Remember what they're doing with their brain. What did I tell you? They're doing like when you go off into Nat'l land. That's what their brain is over here. They're like, what? Right? And all they hear is they feel your anxiety. They feel your irritation. They feel your irritability. And what's it going to do to them? It's going to increase it and cause problems for the Alzheimer resident patient. And now you are going to get more stressed out. Remember, that's what I finally told myself. If I keep her calm, I'm going to stay calm. If I can manage her frustrations, then my frustrations will be managed. The more that I can do for her, the more that I'm doing for myself. It's a little bit selfish, but it's okay. You want to try to keep that peace. And you're not always going to be able to do that because sometimes people just are having bad days. And sometimes the person you're caring for is just out of sorts that day. There's nothing you can say or do or give them that will make them feel any better. Sometimes, and this has worked for my mother too, I'll get on the phone and I'll get on my cell phone and I'll call my house phone and I'll get on the house phone and I'll say, "Oh, Mom, this is your doctor. Yeah, she decided she wants to add that medication. Are you okay with that?" And my mom will say, "Yeah, she wants to make sure you're okay with it. It's your decision, Mom." "Yeah, I'm fine with it." And thank God Mom never says, "Let me talk to her." There's nobody there. But, and you feel crazy doing that. It's just something creative you have to do. Remember, you're trying to keep your house peaceful. You're trying to keep that level of frustration down. Yes, you're still going to be, it's a lot of work. It's still a lot of work, but keep that in mind. The goal is that you are sort of a prosthetic device. You're there to support the person, to support them, to give them whatever their needs may be, and do whatever it is you can do. You're there to anticipate their need. Now here's the deal. All the things I'm saying to you as a caregiver, that's a lot. That's a lot for a person to do. It's stressful, it's frustrating, it's upsetting. You want to cry all day long, you feel like crying, you're angry, whatever it is, you've got to figure out a way to release some of that. We're going to talk about that this afternoon. After lunch, when I come back and speak later, we'll talk about some of those things.
Whoops.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me go back just one more.
Sure.
What was I? Oh, thank you. I'm almost done. Just a second. This is faster than.
But it says keep stress at a manageable
All right,
level
go ahead.
throughout the day. What is a manageable level of stress for you? There's certain parts that you can manage it. But I'm telling you, at the end of the day, it's not going to mean anything for you if you're dead. Because you've driven yourself to that point. It's not. Is that what it's going to have to come to you for you to get that rest? We'll talk about that later. Dementia is incurable, not untreatable. Can we find a cure for it? No. We know that there's no cure for Alzheimer's. Not yet. We're working on that all the time. But we know that we can treat it, and we have to keep that in mind. We want to do everything we can to preserve and enhance whatever abilities they have left. My mother can still do a puzzle like a crazy woman. She can, I'm not talking big piece puzzles, I'm talking little busy puzzles that are all white. She's just brilliant at it, she always has been. She can still play dominoes. I had her play dominoes in my house and I was teaching her, Mom, this is the, she's like, I know how to play dominoes. So we started playing, we played 6 games, I lost 6 games. I lost 6 games to my mother. Now, I had to question my own abilities to thinking, how could I lose 6 games in a row? But she's very good. So she liked it, she enjoyed it, until the kids came over, my niece and nephew came over, and it got kind of loud for her, so she got distracted. So those are kind of some of the other things to think about too. Let me just, because I know someone's going to need to let me know about time, because I want to make sure I get some of this done.
We're about 5. Is that
5
okay,
minutes.
Dr. Lozano?
That sounds great, thank you. Okay, these 2 slides talk about something important. What are the warning signs? You have to ask yourself, what are the warning signs? Do you know when they're going to start to escalate or get worse? Look at some of these things. Look for changes in behavior that are impending signs of aggressive behavior. Are they irritable, pacing, muttering, humming, glaring eyes? Whatever it might be, it's going to be different for everyone else. But look for those warning signs so that you can do what? Distract them. The best way that I can explain this to you, to put it in layman's simple terms, is remember those old robots back when, the little robots you could put on the ground? They don't have toys like that anymore. Their kids are really missing out on all this fun stuff. But the little robots that will walk around, and they bump into a wall, and they stay along the wall, and they keep bumping into it and bumping into it. You know what I'm talking about? Well, that's what happens with a dementia patient. So you can either go over there and just say, quit bumping into the wall, get out of the wall, or talk to them while they're bumping into the wall. Just kind of slightly move them over a different direction, away from another wall so they can continue to get away from you. You're just redirecting them. Find things that you know about that person that are going to work for that person you're caring for to redirect that behavior. You kind of think, y'all think about, some of you are shaking your head, yes. What are some of the things you're thinking about that you can do? What can you do? You were thinking.
I was thinking about.
You were thinking about bread and eggs at HEB, weren't you? You weren't even listening to me, were you?
I was thinking about my husband, how I redirect him.
Yeah, the things that you do for him to redirect. That's good. Does it work?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's very loving. I'm still his sweetheart, so.
Oh, that's
I
always
just
good.
take him by the arm and say, let's do this, let's do that.
So he's cooperative.
Very.
Yeah, well, there's different kinds of levels of caregiving that you do. You have the cooperative care person you're caring for that does everything you tell them to do or follows you along and does everything. You have those as well. However, that does not mean that you still don't feel that level of stress.
But he says, estoy loco, no pendejo.
Then, yeah. That'll be my new saying for myself too. I like that. So the other thing is they getting louder? Is their voice getting louder? Can you start to see where their voice is raising? Are they trying to tell you something they can't really verbalize it, and they're frustrated because they can't verbalize it, but they're kind of acting it out a little bit? So those are kind of some of the things you can look at. Look for all of these warning signs so that you can be prepared to be able to manage it and handle it the way in which you should.
So when they get that verbalization, they can't say what they want to say, do I finish the sentence?
No, redirect them.
I try, but sometimes.
How is that, Doctor? Please explain.
Well, the thing is she's saying that when they keep talking and they can't get out the word that they're trying to say, should you finish that for them or kind of redirect? There's two theories behind that, or 2 thoughts. Not theories, but thoughts. One is if you redirect them, it could be that they get frustrated because they wanted to figure out what that is. But then if you have someone like my mother, she's gonna get upset and say, let me talk. I can do this, I can figure this out. So I just redirect her and I come back to it later. So it depends on who you're talking to again. In your case, your husband, it may be okay for you to finish it for him. But give him a little time. But if you start to see him get agitated, then maybe kind of do some things to prompt him to remember. If you know what it is that he's going to say, just kind of help him prompt him. Oh, you can say, oh, do you think it's this? And see if that works. And that way, he kind of feels that sense of still being
That's what
empowered.
I'm trying to say.
So that's good. That's excellent. That works for him. Some of the other things we can start to see, and I have to kind of close out here that we're at the end. They try to hide their memory loss. That's big. The wandering that we see with Alzheimer's and dementia that's towards the late stages. Sleep disturbances for some. Let me just tell you that sleep disturbances really need to notify your physician as soon as you can, and you need to work on trying to regulate that medication. It might take a while. It might even take a hospitalization, but to try to manage that. And because there's no reason for them to be up and wandering. It's detrimental to their health physically. It's detrimental to your health physically, and you need to manage that. It does not need to be a normal part of what's occurring in that home. It might be for a while, but there's things that you can do with it medicinally. It might require hospitalization, and it might require for you to start to think about what else you might need to do from that point on so far as your living situation. Okay, because at some point, it becomes the work that's really required of a professional to manage that. Okay. Inappropriate sexual behaviors. We have a talk with the Alzheimer's Association that we do on managing inappropriate sexual behaviors. I think it's important that we discuss these, and then maybe next time we can make that part of what our topics are. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
I believe it was a concealed memory loss. Is this a good idea? If a client cannot remember the word and they're using the wrong word, it's totally the wrong word, not even related to what we're talking about, is it all right to ask them, well, what is it that you're looking at right now in order for me to try to help you? Is it okay to say something like that and for them to kind of describe, like, well, I'm looking at that right there, and it might be an electrical outlet connecting with a toaster connected.
Oh, yeah.
And he's trying to remember what, or she's trying to remember what that object is. Is it okay to ask for them to point it out?
You know, again, I hate to say yes or no because I think it really depends on who that client is. I mean, how are they going to take that if you correct them? If they're misidentifying an object, which is very common with Alzheimer's and dementia, they call pencils forks and forks pencils, and they get stuff all mixed up. You have to become a magician and figure out what it is they're asking for when they ask you for the lamp and they want a glass of milk. I mean, that's the kind of thing you've got to try to figure out where they're at and try to make that happen. But at the same time, at the early stages of dementia, especially if you have someone who's trying to conceal their memory, and you correct them, you're going to agitate them. So you might just have to say, okay, let me, just go ahead and say, let me go ahead and give you the light fixture, if you know what the right term is, or the socket, and hand it to them, see if that triggers, oh, light fixture, that's what I meant to say. It might do that, but try not to make it look punitive, or else you correct them at all.
Okay.
So, and I'll be here the rest of the, till my talk is this afternoon, and we can talk some more. Right, thank you.